Hi, everybody. Welcome back. How are you doing? For those of you who are new, I am Boomy. Hello. Thank you for watching. And you are watching Boomy Reactions. So, hi, guys. How are we doing? Welcome back. Welcome back. Today, I've got another video from Lost in the Pond. I think this is the third one that I've seen now. I love, I love this guy. I think he's hilarious. He's very quintessentially British, and I love his sense of humor. I think he's funny to watch. So we've got another one of his videos today. This one is entitled Five Ways in Which American and British Meal Etiquette is Different. Words along the lines of. Um, so yes, this one's going to be a funny one, I think. I hope there's no overly offensive things in here. Just a quick disclaimer: this is a generalization as well. I am fully aware that this will not apply to everywhere in the USA, or I don't know, maybe it does. We're all different. I'm pretty sure everything he's got to say about the differences in comparison to the UK, I'm pretty sure they're a generalization as well. I'll let you know. But let's get on with the video. Guys, if you're enjoying these reactions, please like and subscribe to the channel. It's massively beneficial. Thank you very much. And let's just get on with the video. Stop the chitter chatter.
You are American, their ears might prick up a bit thinking, here comes a payday.
I think I missed the first.
Hello.
All right, let's try that again. Go all the way back. I think it's cut off the first thing he's saying.
If they hear your accent and you are American, their ears might prick up a bit thinking, here comes a payday.
No, sorry guys. I'm not sure. I might have to find another video and find out what the or the context of what he's saying is, because that doesn't make any sense to me right now.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to how we eat, dining etiquette. It's so important, especially when you're meeting your American family for the first time. I'm not talking from experience, maybe just a bit. Cultural differences around the dinner table don't just come down to the words we use, like chips versus fries, or the dishes that we serve. So, you know, America's pecan pie versus Britain's spotted dick. And that is an actual dessert, okay? Look it up, just not on your work computer.
Good advice. Spotted dick is a pudding from over here in the UK, and I think I'm in a minority, but I'm just gonna hold my hands up and say it, guys. It sucks. Like it is not a nice pudding. I don't actually know why anyone would have created this jammy suet pastry mush. Maybe I've just never had, a good one, but I've never had a good experience with this pudding. It is not nice. I wouldn't recommend it. It's definitely not one of our finest. But other people seem to like it. I don't know why. I love Lawrence's glasses. Very quirky. I love them. They suit him, don't they? They remind me of Prue Leith. If any of our viewers have watched the British Bake Off, she is one of the judges in the newer seasons. I've been watching it for a long time, so I say newer as opposed to 15 odd years ago. Prue Leith is one of the judges, and I'm getting Prue Leith vibes from the glasses. I'm pretty sure she's got very, very similar color frames. Rocking it. I love it.
But it's also about some of the mechanisms that we use to get it into our mouths. I'm still talking about food. And also some of the customs and politeness norms that comes with the process of eating. And so without further crab rangoon, here are 5 ways that British and American eating etiquette is very, very different. Whether you call it cutlery, like we do in Britain, or silverware or flatware, or in this case plasticware, because, you know, we are rationing, we can all agree that without them, meal times would be very, very messy, especially in America where they put sauce on everything. But the real question is, how do we hold them? And this was part of my existential crisis after I moved to the United States, because I grew up learning the European style, or as it might be known here, the continental style. And when I say that, I'm
Okay.
referring to what is the official utensil etiquette, right? As opposed to the official American etiquette. And I'm going to show you, I think anyway, some of the differences. I
How are the
personally
other
don't have
ways?
either etiquette completely down because, in my wife's words, I still eat like a toddler. But it mostly comes down to how we hold the fork. In Britain, you sort of
Okay.
you hold it kind of like that, I
Yeah.
think. So you've got it, the end of it's
Uh,
touching your palm, and then you sort of grasp it with your thumb and your pointy finger, and
I
it's
hold it
there for
like that.
pointing downward,
I
right?
need
And
a
you stick
fork.
it into the potatoes or the strawberries or the spotted dick. And notice it's in my left hand. That's going to be important in a moment. And in the other
Right.
hand, you have your knife, right? Usually like this, with the pointy finger right there,
Like
and
this.
it's
Yeah.
touching your palm again. So consistent on both hands, right? It's almost an extension of you. You're almost Wolverine,
It's
but
like
from the United
symmetrical. Yeah, I
Kingdom
see
or
you.
Europe. And then you do this, right? Usually at a lower level. You wouldn't be able to see it because my
Not in
arms are
my
off
case, I'm
screen
short.
now, so I'll
Like
put
this.
them back there. And then you cut into the potatoes or the strawberries or the creamy spotted dick. I mean, it can come with
Strawberries?
custard. That's normal. And voila, put it in your mouth. There's nothing on this. It's not. This isn't that scene in Hook where they eat invisible food. It goes
I
this way
love that
round,
film.
right, with the tines facing downward toward your tongue. In America, it's quite a bit different, right? So
Yeah.
people will hold their fork like this, with the tines facing upward. In other words, to kind of scoop up the food, right? So they'll do that, and actually sometimes, not every
Right.
time. I mean, I'm sure there are people that circumvent all of the things you hear in this very list, but sometimes Americans won't even use a knife, right? You'll just see them scoop something up, maybe a potato. We won't go through the entire list again. Put it in their mouth. If they want to cut up things in that way, sometimes they'll do it with the fork, right? Don't recommend it with plastic forks. You know, you can get through these pretty quickly if you do that. But
I love how he's talking about this like it's unheard of and this never happened in the UK. Um, I think I must do a combination of both. Um, so yes, I hold my knife and fork the way that Lawrence does when we're cutting things up on the plate, but then I convert to scooping with the other side of the fork. I just thought that was normal because otherwise, like if you're trying to scoop up like a spoonful, a forkful of peas into your mouth, you're not going to do it like prong through four peas and then a few peas at a time. That's silly. That doesn't make any sense. You're going to turn the fork around and then you're just going to shovel it in. Um, I don't think it's horrendous to only use a fork and cut things up. I think it depends on what you're eating. So if you're eating, like, say, if you're eating steak or if you've got a cut of meat, you're not going to hack at it with the side of the fork because you're not going to get very far. You know, you're going to need that knife. Um, but if you're eating something that's a little bit more or a little bit less tough, so, for example, like if you are eating a meatloaf, piece of meatloaf, um, you that there is nothing wrong with cutting pieces off with the side of the fork. Like I don't think you'd necessarily need the knife. I'm saying this. I'm wondering if it's a generational thing. So maybe I would say like my generation. I am still a millennial. Um, I would say my generation aren't as offended by the difference in meal etiquette and manners at the table that we would call it over here manners. I'm not so offended. It doesn't bother me. But saying that, I think my parents' generation, for example, and most definitely my grandparents' generation, might take it a little bit more seriously. And I'm a little bit more working class. So actually, I think they would take it less seriously again. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe that affects how seriously you take this etiquette. So I don't know. I think maybe this would apply to older generations. The younger ones wouldn't care too much, I don't think.
But if they do use a knife, they may turn the fork like this into the potato and then cut like that. You've got it there. You turn it back around. It's in your gob, and
Yeah,
there you go. Bob's your uncle. You've got potatoes, and that's what a lot of Americans do. My father-in-law
yeah, that's
though
what I
did
do.
this. He had it like that and like that. He'd turn it that way, and then like that. It sort of looked. I should tell you that my in-laws were cavemen. But it was through those very cavemen slash dear relatives of my wife that I was first introduced to our next entry.
Don't tell them that. I hope they're not watching this.
Yes, saying grace. This one is quite a tough entry in many ways because, in order to talk about it, I do have to somewhat generalize. And also, I don't have much data to back up what I'm about to say. It's more observationally driven, right? So when I lived in
Let's
England for
remember that.
27 years of my life, I don't say that with disdain, it was a good time. But in all that time, I don't really remember sitting down to a dinner function of any kind and really sort of saying grace beforehand. In other words, kicking
That's
off the
right.
meal with a sort of faith based thanks. Now, part of that, and again, this is where the generalization comes in, so bear with me, but in England, we tend to be less sort of like publicly open or just sort of even privately open, if you can be, among your family members about your religious beliefs. Whereas in the United States, I think people are more sort of proud of that, whatever their religious faith is. And so sometimes in some families, and this again could be regional, so I might well be generalizing, but some families, including the extended relatives that I married into, I didn't marry them, I married into the family. Some families, and I gather maybe quite a lot of families here in the United States, particularly at special events like Thanksgiving or maybe even a homecoming of some kind, will sort of say grace before the meal. And there'll usually be one family member who stands up and says it on behalf of the entire group. And then you say amen and go about your way. For me, it was quite weird at first, I think. Now, I'm very respectful of other people's religious beliefs. I didn't really know what to do except just sort of sit there and then wait for it to be done. And
Just
then,
go
because
along with
I
it.
had half a mind on the turkey. So, what are you going to do? And because I'm generalizing here, it's important for me to say that this is my experience. I'd be very interested to hear other people's experiences, other Europeans' experiences of coming here and maybe having to say grace when they're not used to it, or, Americans that don't themselves practice this.
This this is an interesting one. So through watching a lot of American-based TV throughout my youth, I have seen the scene of saying grace before meals. It's been very televised, obviously. I have no real life experience of this. And very sadly, I don't know any Americans, not personally. I know it's very sad. Um, so, yeah, I have not actually asked anybody directly. Please let me know, guys, in the comments. What what is normal? What's the average American's experience with this? Do you guys say grace before every meal? I thought that was, when I say the American way, I thought that was very normal for most families in America to say grace before every meal. Now, in the UK, as discussed here, that's it's just it's not something that we do. But now I think about it, yeah, was there a period where we did do that, and maybe it's a little bit more of an older habit from older generations, and we just don't do it as much anymore. In my family, growing up, it was a normal thing. We sat down as a family for our evening meal or dinner or tea in the north. We sat down and we said thank you to the person that provided the meal, the person that made the meal, which sometimes it was my mum, sometimes it was my dad. But we thanked whoever made the meal. And then as me and my siblings got older, it might have been me that made the meal. And I would get the thanks. So I suppose that's kind of similar, but it's more thanking the person that made the meal. It's not a faith based thank the creator for the food for this meal. I suppose that's the difference. I think it's obviously like a religious thing, isn't it? It's obviously a difference between the UK and the USA. I think it generally does come down to religion having less of a major role in the UK over the years. possibly. What do you think, guys? Is that something that's so entwined into your lives that you would never be without saying grace before a meal? In my family, we would not sit down and not say thank you to the person who provided the meal and made the meal themselves. So I suppose it's very similar, but I have been told by quite a few that I'm in a minority. They think it's kind of it's odd. It's nice, but at the same time, it's odd that me and my family did that every single day. Not that it was bad, just that it was just something that they didn't do. So I don't know whether I'm a minority there, guys. But similarities. But yes, yeah, I had always wondered about your saying grace. So is it every meal? Is it every day? Is it the norm in most households? I suppose is my question. Let me know in the comments, guys.
I've also heard it can go one step further here where the whole family holds hands. I definitely draw
Ah,
the line at that, especially right now. The best way that I can put this for British people watching back home is, in football when, somebody dies and they have a minute's silence within the stadium, and then when the minute's silence is up, they all erupt in applause and all of that. It's kind of like
I
that,
don't know. I'm
minus
not a
the
football fan.
applause. It's just an amen. But the energy after that is great because you all want to tuck into your food. And because the energy's so good, that leads us on to our next entry.
Table
Oh, I don't mind a bit of
chatter.
chatter and exceptionally weird noises. And at an American dinner table, you're going to get a lot of chatter. Usually, again,
Same,
this is
same,
another
same, same.
generalization, but on the whole, this is my experience. And I'm one of those people who doesn't think that Americans are always loud, as the stereotype dictates. But one exception tends to be in restaurants, right? I do hear the volume go up there as compared to Britain, where it feels like we're always battling with this war within ourselves to not air our dirty laundry in public. I'm not saying we don't talk at dinner tables, don't get me wrong.
I do.
It feels observationally once again, and again, there's no data on this. There's not somebody going around measuring the decibels in every restaurant in either country, especially right now because they're all closed. But that's my general experience of it. Now, I could be getting thrown off course a little bit here because, my wife's family are really loud. Don't tell them I said that.
I
Although
hope they're
this is
not
a public
watching.
video. They know it's true. I've told them before, and that's why we've not spoken in a year. But here in America, you might be in a restaurant, sitting down with just one other person, trying to have a quiet, intimate conversation. And to your right, there's this really loud family with a 5-year-old running around with a stupid hat on that he got from the restaurant, right? So they're further enhancing the volume of said family. And then on the other side, there's clearly what is a date happening. And the woman is just sitting there quietly, looking quite glum, while the man very audibly and haphazardly talks about all of the Fortune 500 companies he's worked for. And she stares into space, presumably thinking of all the ways that she can get out of there. But on the other hand, once you do get used to that sort of raised volume, it does add to the atmosphere, And if you're already in a good mood and you enter somewhere where thousands, that's a huge restaurant, hundreds maybe, where there's lots of people and they're in a good mood and it just sort of bounces off the walls. But speaking of restaurants, that brings us on to our next entry.
Oh, I'm just going to interrupt you before we hear the next one. Um, I'm not sure on this one. So, like restaurants over here, the normal experience when you go into a restaurant, I suppose you're generally a space away, quite a space away from the next table over. Maybe that's the difference. Other people having conversations really doesn't bother me, but I'm sure you've gathered this by now, guys. I'm a talker. I'm a chatterbox. So every meal I'm present at, I'm gonna just away. Um, it would never, it wouldn't be normal for me to eat a meal in silence. It's never been normal in my family growing up. It's not normal in my household. Dinner time conversation, and I think that's a mentality, quite a common mentality in the UK, is that you all live such busy lives, you know, going to work and school, doing blah, 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 whatever it is in the day, that sitting down together as a family and having a meal might be the only time that you really get to converse with each other. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, maybe that's my family's mentality growing up, but the mentality was always this might be the only time we get to really ask you about your day. So this is conversation time as well as food time. And I understand people might feel funny about that because, at the same time you're eating, and you could be polite about eating and talking at the same time. No one's going to be dropping food out their mouth like blah, 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 blah. We're not gross, we're not rude. But meal times are very much a social thing in my household. Now, I can only really speak for myself. I don't know how common that is elsewhere in the UK, because I think a lot of other households don't have the opportunity to sit down as a family, or maybe they just don't prioritize it. I don't know. Maybe households don't sit down together and eat because everyone's so busy and they've got different schedules and things. So maybe they just grab dinner, grab whatever they can, eat it. Maybe the next person that comes into the kitchen grabs something else 15 minutes later, so you're not sitting down together and chatting. But it was very much a priority in my household growing up that dinner was a social time. We're all going to sit down at the same time and we're going to tell each other about our day. Um, Even some of our UK viewers, is that normal for you guys? I don't know. I don't know. But yes, that was very much my experience growing up. How does that compare for you guys? Like, are you chatterboxes at the dinner table? I think it's important. I love it, but I am a talker, so I can't really speak for the Brits on this one. I think I'm in a bit of a minority.
Servers,
Server
servers,
etiquette.
servers. My heart does go out to all of the servers and anybody else to whom this applies around the world who can't go into work right now. And a huge thank you to delivery servers who
Because this
are
video
able
was
to
made
keep
during
people
lockdown.
fed who
Yeah.
might need it. But, back in peacetime when the restaurants were still open, there was quite a marked difference between, British servers and American servers and the way they sort of conduct themselves at the dinner table while you're eating your dinner. In Britain, they're quite standoffish. And I know that's just a trait of British people in general. I get that. But they don't have the incentive, which we'll talk about in a minute, to constantly be coming back to your table and seeing how you're doing, checking if you need a refill on that water, because you probably won't get one anyway. I'm joking, of course you'll get a free refill on your water, just nothing else. Often, know this, if you want their attention, you're going to have to get their attention yourself, and that includes when it comes time to pay the bill. Whereas in the United States, and each restaurant has its different policy on this, the waiting staff will come to your table every 5 minutes usually just to see how you're doing, and it seemingly doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a seriously one-sided conversation about the Fortune 500 companies you've worked for. They will still come over and go, hey, what's up? How's that tenderloin working out for you? And there are a couple of big reasons, I think, that American serving staff do this. Firstly, the company often dictates it. It's seen as a kind of data-driven way of, having good customer service. But having good customer service could well dictate this. Have they tried antifreeze with that? No. Well, he might go back to his milk phase eventually. Yeah. So the dreaded tip, or at least it was dreaded to me when I first moved to America. Actually, when I landed at Philadelphia Airport, this is the first time I remember having to sort of navigate the American tipping system because I bought a drink at a bar at that very airport. And having bought the Jack Daniels, or 6, I'm not a good flyer. I turned to the gentleman next to me and I asked him, how does tipping work? And, he very, very kindly offered, well, whatever the amount is on your receipt, just give them 85% of that. And that's about good. That's standard. That was a lie. And I ended up almost bankrupt. Firstly, in the United States, regardless of the amount, it's very much expected that you do tip, because that's basically how servers make their wage. And the standard amount that you're expected to tip is the complete opposite of 85%. It's 15%, right? But if you thought it was good service, or just to be sort of a good person, really, you can definitely tip more than that. I typically tip. Just try saying that after 6 whiskeys. I did that night. I typically tip, particularly if I'm on a trip, 20%, or I might even round up to 21 if it kind of requires it. Tipping of some kind is expected here. In the UK, if you're thinking of going there, firstly, don't do that right now. But if after all this blows over, you are fancying going to the UK, then you're not required to tip at all, right? I mean, people get paid a sort of living wage, more or less, for being a server in the UK. It's good practice. If you want to do that, you certainly can. 10% is recommended. And, growing up in the UK, I never really did tip all that often, I must say. I think if I were to live there now, I probably would do so a bit more. It's not expected. I mean, servers aren't going to expect you to tip. Although, if they hear your accent and you are American, their ears might prick up a bit thinking, here comes a payday, right? Whereas it's the other way round here. As soon as...
Right. Well, that's just made so much more sense about the beginning of this video and when it started. That's the context, guys. Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense now. Yes. So tipping over in the UK, we only tip in restaurants, and that's not fast food restaurants either. That is sitting down, having a meal, not McDonald's or anything like that. And tipping is customary 10%. I'd say 10% is the minimum. Now, while it's not compulsory, I think it's expected. You can choose to not tip. I personally would not. I would not choose not to. Let me rephrase that. I would opt to tip, but it's very kind of, I don't know, swings and roundabouts. It's very much a weighed-up argument. So our servers, our restaurant staff will all be paid a minimum wage, a living minimum wage. So they won't necessarily rely on tips. So I'd imagine tips just make whatever wage it is that they're on, a better wage. It's kind of a bit more money. Now, in America, my understanding is that a lot of restaurant staff are paid less than, I don't know, do you guys have a minimum wage? My understanding is that they're paid less than, what would be considered a good wage. So if these staff are so reliant on tips, I understand why it's a much more common thing to tip. Do you guys tip for everything? Like for us in the UK, it literally is just restaurants. It's nothing else, absolutely nothing else. It's just restaurants. So that's interesting to know. So what else would you tip for, guys, if it's not just restaurants? Let me know in the comments. But yes, a bit of a difference. But it is 10% is a 10% tip is expected, customary. Yeah.
Servers hear a British accent, they must be filled with dread. Or maybe that's not true. Maybe servers hear a British accent and think, he's ripe for manipulation. I've had some bad experiences. That's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me today. And, it's kind of sad that I couldn't practice a lot of these things for the video, except for the knives and forks, and those were the last plastics I have. As ever, a reminder that you can keep up with me and all my stupid ramblings on Twitter at LostInThePondUS. And if you've not had a chance to do so, why not subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond? As ever, a big shout out to all my patrons who make spoons like this one possible. If you would like to become a patron of Lost in the Pond, you can do so at patreon.com/LostInThePond. Until next time, keep eating, keep happy, and I will see you soon. Thank you for watching this episode of Lost in the Pond. Don't forget to hit my stupid little face to subscribe, and please share this video with the world. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and if you would like to support this channel, please do so at patreon.com/LostInThePond.
Oh, I do love his videos. He's a funny guy. Has he missed any other differences? What do you guys reckon? I'm trying to think. I thought he was going to talk about table manners, little things like don't put your elbows on the table. Constantly told off for when I was younger. Or I suppose don't talk at the dinner table. Maybe that is more of a British thing, but then again, I'm a chatterer. So that one has never applied in my family growing up. As if you can't tell. Is there any more? I'm trying to think of any off the top of my head. La, 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 la. What is considered rude at the dinner table? Phones. So, how do you guys feel about mobile phones? That's probably more of a maybe a newer generation thing. I can't stand. I'm nitpicky about this. I think this might just be me. I don't like mobile phones at the dinner table. I find them very rude. I just do. But that might be because in my family, dinner times are for socializing as well as eating. You know, it's the chance to converse with the family. So, yes, I find phones at the table quite rude. I'll get a cob on if someone has a phone at the dinner table. I'll have a bit of a sulk. I will say no, no, no. Um, Watching TV at the dinner table. How do you guys feel about that? Is that I bet that'll split people because I'd imagine it does over here. I've had friends growing up that have been a little bit at it. Some families will say, turn the TV off, you're having your dinner. And other people will just happily carry on watching the TV. Or maybe you guys don't have a TV anywhere near your dining room because why would you? It's the dining room. Let me know. That's an interesting one. But for me, no, it's a no, 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 no. It's for socializing and chatting and eating. So let me know what you guys think. Is this just like, is it a generational thing? Am I being a little bit old fashioned? I don't know. I don't even think I can compare myself to other British people on this. Thank you for watching today, guys. I'm going to go and scope out some more of these Lost in the Pond videos. I am very much enjoying them. And I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.